Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the next webinar in our digital literacy series, all about using software to manage club assets. This is the fourth workshop in our digital literacy series for clubs, where we're hoping to get across the message that there are great technology tools available in business, and we'd love to see them be better used in the not-for-profit sector as well. Our goal at CPR Group is to provide confidence among volunteers so that they can use the tools to improve their operations. We've not only been providing planning advice and support to clubs in the field of asset management for more than 10 years, we've also even developed specific software exactly for this purpose. The focus of this session will therefore be to give you an understanding of the importance of asset management for community sport and recreation clubs in the first place, and then to give you an overview of our software, which is called Asset Track, and how to use it. Just a word about the importance of volunteer time before we begin. In our experience, we think that too many clubs are overly cost sensitive, not realizing that spending a little bit of money on software tools is actually an investment in time saving and improved reporting and accountability. It's not simply a cost. So that's a message that we've been trying to get across in all of these sessions, and it's therefore okay to invest some money in tools to improve your efficiency. So that's right across the spectrum of technological tools that are available in business and of course to the not-for-profit sector. So while technology in business can seek to replace staff and replace people, in the not-for-profit world, we seek to use technology to enhance the work of our volunteers, not to replace them. So it's the design of software should be to make your roles more efficient by being able to achieve more, but in less time as well. So there's a picture of me. My name, for those of you who don't know me, is Michael Connolly, and I'm CPR Group's Managing Director. Since 1997, we've been working regularly with councils and state and national sport and community recreation organisations on projects like planning and training of all sizes, from recreational strategies for regions and master plans, right down to specific training programs for local community organisations. We've been helping clubs to identify and implement technology solutions for pretty much as long as we've been using these solutions ourselves. So it therefore seemed logical to expand from just teaching about good facility and asset management to actually filling a gap in the market by developing easy to use and affordable software specifically designed to help streamline the asset management process for not-for-profit organisations. A little bit of housekeeping. If you have a look over in the left-hand column of your window, you'll see there a Q&A button. If you pop that open, you'll be able to ask any questions in there that as we go through. Hopefully the explanation as we go through will be solid enough for you so that there won't be too many questions. But of course, if there are, pop them in there. If we have time at the end, I'll run through those questions, should there be some. And if there are too many and we don't get a chance to answer all of them or to address anything that is really specific to your needs, we'll touch base with you as soon as we can after the session to give you any more information. So one of the great questions that I have been asked quite a bit as soon as we started talking about facility management was, well, why us? Why? We're just volunteers. We just lease this stuff. You know, it's not our building, it's council's building. So why should we have to spend time, money, and effort doing and programming facility maintenance and facility management? Well, the answer is that clubs manage really expensive infrastructure. And if you go around and speak to some people at councils, you'll see that they actually know the value. And in most cases, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. So therefore, it's no longer going to be okay for us to say, well, we're just volunteers. We don't have to do things like that. We don't have to do things as if we were in business. Well, that really isn't the case anymore. The answer is that, well, absolutely we do. We really do need to do things as well as we possibly can. And to be honest, councils all over the place are really tightening the reins. And we believe that it'll get to the point where only organisations and their people, that's volunteers and workers, whether paid or unpaid, who look after their infrastructure and their own assets, will even be eligible to lease premises in the future. And what if we don't do it? Or what if we get it wrong? Well, unfortunately, there are far too many examples of that. Here's a wonderful picture of a clubhouse that, when this picture was taken, was only 7 years old. Because of bad management, and by bad management in this case, I mean moisture being left around, the place was literally riddled with termites. So having spent over $1 million building this facility in the first place, Less than a decade later, council and therefore ratepayers were footing the bill for $250,000 just to rectify damage that was completely avoidable. Now, it was completely avoidable because the water was sitting around because they had dirty showers that were clogged up, and then the water was left sitting in them for the whole off season. Here's a lovely photo of how the canteen looked, and you can see this is not just food stuff. This is just, well, garbage that can accumulate in badly managed and badly maintained areas. If you turned around when this photo was taken and had a look, this is after the off season, so months later, there were literally dirty dishes in the sink. So that's just poor management. And it's not okay for organizations like that to be looking after, in this case, millions of dollars worth of community assets that needed to be repaired or replaced unnecessarily. Now, I'm talking about big picture assets here, but it's not only the big picture assets that matter, it's also the small stuff. What about knowing exactly where all of our stuff is? So this is really a picture of a pile of club. So these are all club assets, club phones, club tablets that were just missing. So they all were owned by the club, but because there was before we started getting things sorted, there was no good asset management system that kept tabs on where things were. So the purchase price of each of these assets is well north of $1,000, but they just got dissipated. So they were each handed out to committee members, to coaching coordinators, to age group coordinators, and then evaporated. Now, how many times does it happen that a committee changes? The committee knows that we purchased some assets, but they were not included in the asset. Well, we didn't have an asset register, and they weren't included on a depreciation schedule, and they just disappeared. So when you look at pictures like this, it's pretty easy to see that having a good approach to asset management will lead to immediate cost savings. Not only the time savings by doing it simply by using good software, but the cost savings in not losing assets and not needing to replace or repair buildings prematurely. So what is an asset? Well, as we've spoken about already, there are assets big and assets small, and asset management applies differently to the different types of assets. Straight away, your land itself is an asset. It's typically not an asset that has a realizable value when it's community land that is often leased to your organization. But as it develops, you can see how we build our asset base. Plus, you can also see that the operations, so the things that we do on our land every day, can sometimes stop us being able to see the forest for the trees. So we build our assets incrementally over time, and the excitement about the latest asset, whether it's field lighting or a clubhouse, overshadows the fact that, well, we really need to be looking after the assets that we've had right since the beginning. So when we first start, we might have some fields, but these fields have been embellished with goalposts and even the corner flags that we can see there. They require a certain type of maintenance. The fields, to be able to be playable, will need to make sure that we've got enough moisture, so they need to be irrigated, and we need to keep them mowed. So this is all maintenance that should be programmed somewhere. Over time, we might realize that having a fixed irrigation and some fixed drainage systems will make our lives a bit more, our operations a bit simpler. We can then stick some light towers in as well. And again, the types of maintenance that we need to do on these systems varies from what we're doing on the field. We keep building, we've got some seating, we've got some shade areas, we've got some spectator areas. And all of these things require a new layer of maintenance, because as soon as we're building things like spectator seating, for instance, there are elements of risk management that you can't lose sight of. You've got to make sure that you're looking after your assets to maintain the safety of the people who are using them. Then we'll build fencing, car parking, signage, clubhouses, change rooms, and everything that then goes into those buildings. So you can see furniture with all of the non-fixed assets, all of the equipment that we fill up these places. They are assets that we need to make sure that we're tracking and that we are appropriately maintaining. The equipment that we use to do the maintenance is an asset itself. So here we've got a picture of a tractor, but that, if we were talking cricket, could be a roller, could be a mower. There's also hand tools and power tools. These are all assets, and again, they all require different maintenance regimes. And of course, it's only when we get this right that we realize the most important point is we do good asset management because we need to make sure that we're providing great assets for our people. So like most governance topics, asset management is all about the people. We acquire the assets in the first place, and then we seek to keep them fit for purpose to provide great services for our members. So everything links together dealing with people. So now I'd like to get into a high level how do we do good asset management? But before I do, one more word about the need for good asset management. Never lose sight of the fact that good asset management is actually a critical part of your organization's financial management. So as the assets of an incorporated not-for-profit association are there for the benefit of all members, it's not surprising that incorporation legislation actually mandates that you have an asset register. It's critical that the assets are handed on from committee to committee and not accidentally or on purpose pilfered by an outgoing committee member. So asset management starts and revolves around the asset register. You then use that asset register to program inspections and then maintenance for each asset. So as we've seen, every asset, no matter how big or how small, has a certain element of maintenance that should be applied to it. So that can be as simple as maintaining the mobile phone. Make sure that it still works, make sure it's still in the possession of the person that it was given to, and make sure it's clean and up to date as far as software, hardware, and firmware go. From there, we need to program replacement. Every asset will have a useful life. For a building, it might be 50, 60, if it's well built and well maintained, maybe even a century. But every asset will need to be replaced. For a computer, it might be as short as a couple of years. So if we program that already in, then that helps with our overall asset planning. Once we replace an asset, the cycle starts again. But importantly, we have elements of budgeting that feed into both the maintenance programming and our replacement programming. So nothing works without money. So it's a matter of making sure that we've got great business practices and obviously appropriate fee structures to support our ability to have enough money to then be able to spend on maintenance and replacement. So to have oversight and good reporting through the use of good software, that gives us the ability to plan in the future and not get really reactive and say, well, now we don't have any money left to be able to do the maintenance that was required in the first place, or to be able to replace our assets as the time becomes upon us. Okay, now for the exciting part. Let's have a quick overview of Asset Track. Once you arrive at the Asset Track website, you'll see that if you haven't set up an account already, you can register here or click here to log in. Logging in is obviously nice and simple. Type in your name. There we go. I'll log in as me and log in. Simple as that. Once we arrive into the system, here's a little bit of an overview. You'll arrive at what is the Asset Master, and at the moment this is the dashboard page. So at the top of the screen you can see a total number of assets, inspectors, completed jobs, and scheduled maintenance costs, which is everything into the future. So the dashboard gives us pretty clear overview of the assets. We've got our inspectors all over here as separate menus, the completed maintenance, archived assets, schedule, our subscribed plan, the different asset categories, and there's always the ability to help. So once you've got a paid subscription, you can download a CSV copy of all of your assets. So that's your asset register should you need to provide it. On the Asset Master screen, you'll see that it doesn't display everything about every asset, but it does display enough information so that I can see at a glance what we're talking about. So the Asset Details column there shows us that the top of the list there is an iPhone 6. Its category is obviously IT and phones. It shows us the purchase date, the purchase price, and the estimated replacement value. And here we can click View, Duplicate, Edit, or Archive for the little trash can there. So let's have a look now at this top asset in the system. We'll just click View here and have a look. And you can see pretty simply, there's all of the information that we've programmed in. So the asset detail is up the top here. And all of this information is separate. And we can see that that's actually Jane's phone. So we've assigned the maintenance to what we call an inspector. An inspector is the person who maintains responsibility for looking after the phone and making sure that it remains in the club's possession over time. So just to conclude on the sorts of terminology that we've used in the system, as you sign up as a company. So a company is an organization that is using Asset Track to track maintenance on its assets and track where those assets are at any given time. We've then got inspectors, who are the people that we assign the work to. So one of the important things about asset management is not to think that just because I'm the person who is the asset manager, it might be in my portfolio, it's not only my job. There are lots of people who can share the work around. And so by devising that in the system right at the beginning, we're encouraging organizations, particularly not-for-profit groups who are using Asset Track, to share the workload around equitably. So before we can add an asset, we need to add an inspector because, as I said earlier, every asset, no matter how small, will have some element of maintenance required for it. So we need to apply that maintenance to a person who doesn't necessarily need to do that maintenance, but they do need to make sure that it gets done. So to add an inspector, it's very easy. We just go to the Inspectors tab over here, and then that will take us to our Inspector Master, where we've got a list of already entered inspectors. To add a new, we simply add new. We'll add Batman in here. And as soon as we've done that, we click Save. And then Batman will be in the system. So there he is at the top of the list there. Batman's been added as an inspector in our system. At this point, incidentally, Batman gets an email. So Batman now knows that he's welcomed to Asset Track, and each time Batman is assigned an asset, he will also receive another email. Probably for his utility belt, I suppose. Now the fun part is adding an asset. It has been said, and I'll admit that it's by me, that the most complex part of creating an asset register is starting your asset register. Once you've got your asset register going and it's got a few assets in it, we can see that we've got 36 in here so far. We've fallen into a rhythm. We've got our assets in, we've got enough in there so that if we've got multiple assets of the same type, for instance, we can simply click duplicate and create additional copies of those. Now, the reason that we've built the system with a duplicate function rather than a multiple function is that every asset, even if they're exactly the same, the iPhone 6 that we were looking at earlier, every asset will have its own serial number and will be assigned to a different person and may have its own maintenance programming as well. So let's have a look at how simple it is to add a new asset. We simply click Add New. The number will populate automatically. Now here we select the category. So if we don't know what the category is, we're going to add a clubhouse. So we go and we can see, there's clubhouse under building. So the category, once we go back, will be building. And then the subcategory list will populate based on our selection for the first one, and we'll call it Clubhouse. We add some details in here at the location, and that can be mobile for our small assets. As this is a building, we'll call the manufacturer the builder. We don't have a model or a serial number for a building, so we put in a purchase price. Now we're guessing the purchase price because we built this building in 81, but we think that its estimated replacement time, we'll give it another 10 years, and we reckon it probably cost us more like 600 grand. So that's it for the asset, and then into the inspector. So we'll assign Mr. Inspector, and Mr. Inspector can do the plumbing. As we assign maintenance of the same type, we'll get a little warning here so that we can assign the same maintenance on the same day, if we're particularly in cases like this where we're bringing in an electrical and a plumbing inspector. We're going to program the frequency there at 6 monthly, which will automatically populate the date, and then we'll put an estimated cost in. But the important part of the system is that all of the information that we might need to know for doing the plumbing and electrical maintenance will automatically populate. We can add a photo there. And then if we like, we can assign more maintenance. So it's really important to understand that different types of maintenance work on different maintenance frequencies. So for instance, we've got the electrical and lighting and plumbing at the top of the screen there on a 6 monthly frequency, and that's assigned to Mr. Inspector. But Inspector Gadget can share a bit of workload here, and Inspector Gadget can be the inspector assigned for the building cleaning that only has to happen annually. So each maintenance activity can be assigned a frequency that is completely independent from the others, can be assigned to an inspector that is independent of the others, and that's really important. So it's not one person who ends up doing all of the maintenance work, because we all know that when that happens, particularly in the volunteer sector, it's typical that most things then start dropping off the bottom. And of course, we can upload a few photos as we go along. So that's the main part of Asset Track, is the asset register. And while it takes, a few minutes, maybe And by the time you get into it, honestly, you're adding them in a minute or two for the smaller assets, especially when you're able to duplicate them. So it's not a particularly onerous task, but I can honestly say it's far better than populating a simple spreadsheet, because a simple spreadsheet won't tell you when things are due. Now, telling you when things are due leads me nicely into the next part of the demonstration, which is what it looks like when an inspector logs in. So here we can see that Mr. Inspector is logged in. So Mr. Inspector's dashboard looks different than the company dashboard, because the inspector's dashboard only shows the inspector their assigned assets. So we can see Mr. Inspector, we're on page 2 of Mr. Inspector's assets here, and he's got 15 assets, 3 upcoming jobs, 5 completed jobs. Oh, Mr. Inspector's been a bit slack with 12 overdue jobs. So what I'd like to demonstrate is, as Mr. Inspector does one of his inspections and programs and does the programmed maintenance, how simple it is to enter that into the system so that then we generate the report. So we're going to do the inspection for this control room here. So we'll start that inspection. Yes, we certainly do. There we go. So the grayed out fields are fields that are already populated in the system. So there's the asset type. It's a building. Now, the maintenance cost for this type of maintenance, because we're talking a structural inspection here, is 0. So you can see there's all of the activities already automatically popped into the system. The actual maintenance cost ended up being nothing. And, well, we think it's going to be nothing next time. It's automatically put that at the next frequency, which is an annual inspection. As we're going through, we enter in any observations that we find. So the building appears to be in sound structural condition, and any actions taken as we went through. So the actions that we took here were that we inspected the building both inside and out. No further work is required. And the really important part is where I can declare that the building is fit for use for its intended purpose. If it's not, then I could put a tick in the bottom box there. But this one is absolutely fine, so it's perfectly okay. If I want, I can upload some photos and simply click save. I recommend that organizations and inspectors do this part using a mobile device, because when you've got your phone with you, you can snap the photos as you're going and literally pop them straight in. Now, I'm not as fast typing with my thumb, so I like to do my inspections on the computer because I can tap things in nice and fast. But for the most part, it's really easy to do this part logged straight in directly from your mobile device. And of course, being a web app, it renders beautifully, particularly using Google Chrome. And then the reporting. Now, reporting is, in my opinion, probably one of the most important features of Asset Track. Your reporting provides evidence of your statutory compliance. It provides evidence of your lease compliance. The statutory compliance can be things like the inspection frequency for your fire safety equipment. This is in one place where all of that can be recorded. It's also evidence of complying with your lease obligations. So under your lease from council, you will most likely have some, if not lots, of maintenance responsibilities. It's very easy for them to get lost or forgotten, apart from when we're doing our lease renewal. So this is a great way to capture everything safely in the one place. But even more practically, evidence of your maintenance is also really important if you should you need to make an insurance claim or a warranty claim. So let's have a look at how the reporting works. So as soon as the admin logs back in, you'll see that there's a little number 1 up there showing me that Mr. Inspector has now completed the maintenance. So there is the asset detail. There's a lovely picture of the building. That's our control room. Asset details up there. Now, the asset maintenance on this particular building is massive. You can see that there are lots of different types of maintenance that need to be done, but it's this bottom one that Mr. Inspector has completed most recently now. So we can see there's the report. It's as simple as that. As soon as it's done, most of the information on that report automatically populates because that information came from the system in the first place. So that gives you a very quick flyby of how Asset Track works. A word about the next stage. So the dashboard view is the very final stages of development for a new view. So what that will give you is a snapshot overview as soon as you log in. That is filterable. So if you want to see how much money you need to budget for maintenance in the next financial year, you can filter it to just show all of the maintenance at the respective frequencies for the upcoming financial year. If you want to see how much money you have spent in a given period, and this is important, for instance, when you're demonstrating your compliance with your lease come next lease application time, then you can filter to see that as well. So that's a really quick overview of how effective good asset management can be and how the effective use of a good system can really drive improved behavior. And as we've said in each of these sessions, it's important that technology is your servant and not your master. So by having a tool that was built specifically for not-for-profit organizations and for sport and recreation groups, it means that this system can support you in what you're doing. So it takes as much of the work as it can, remembering that under the regulations here in Queensland, at least, you must have an asset register. If you don't have one, don't go and develop another spreadsheet. You are far better off developing a system that drives behavioral change. So I've had a few questions come in. I'll pick a good one. This one's an easy one. How much does it cost? That's a really good question. And if you have a look at the pricing page on the website, you'll see that for a company, it's $220 per year. So if you look at that pile of assets that one club had lost, that adds up to in the order of $10,000 of expenditure. It's pretty easy to see that it's easy for a system like this, and this one in particular, because of its specificity for not-for-profit organizations, to make that money back really easily every year. Here's another question, more of a statement. Doesn't it take ages to set up an asset register? So that one looks like it came in a little bit earlier as well. The answer is yes, it takes time, however you do it, but using a tool that's designed specifically for the job makes that job so much quicker. So as I just said, if you're just using a spreadsheet, that spreadsheet will just have words and numbers in cells. It won't be pushing information out to the person who needs to get it. Importantly, an email will be sent to you if you're assigned an asset. An email will be sent to you as you are assigned that asset. When the maintenance is due, a week out, you'll receive an email say, hey, you're going to be doing this maintenance in a week. So if there's any programming or booking that you need to do, you can do that from a week out. Then on the day that the maintenance is due, you'll be reminded again. And then I've requested the development team to make Asset Track get naggy. So as maintenance is not done, then Asset Track will continue to send reminders until each maintenance activity is clicked off. This is a really good question. Can you use this for a master key register, and who has each key for each area? When I go into this topic in a bit more detail, I explain the accounting definition of an asset, and a key doesn't fit into that definition because it's just a key. It doesn't have a financial value. However, the key gives you access to everything that does have financial value. So we have built in a key register directly into Asset Track. So as a category, you can see key as a category, and then the subcategories are the different types of keys: fobs, RFIDs, literally keys. The idea then, and the pre-programmed maintenance says, make sure that you show that you've still got this key to the administrator at least every 6 months. You can adjust that frequency as you like. So if you want to do it every month or every year, but it's critical that you, as soon as somebody leaves, that you have an excellent key register. I have a messy asset register. Some of the items are consumables. Another great point there. And what that leads me to believe is that the definition of an asset is really important in an understanding. So we do have a little video that I think, if it's not on the asset management, on the Asset Track site, send me a quick message and I'm very happy to share that with you, that goes through and defines the difference between an asset, stock, and a consumable. Because what we're dealing with here, although your consumables and your stock may show up on your balance sheet as an asset, we don't need to maintain those. So I buy stock for the purposes of selling it: food, drink, merchandise. So we don't account those in an asset register or an asset management system. We don't account for our line marking paint, for instance, because we've bought that paint to consume in the line marker. The line marker itself, that's an asset, because that's something that we will keep for more than 12 months. If you're interested in further information, I'd be very happy to provide a demonstration, or one of our team can very easily provide a more detailed demonstration of the system and some of those things that have come through in the questions that we've received as well. And that's a good segue into how we can help. So, firstly, as previous webinar attendees will know, we're actually offering extended free access to Asset Track for all of our webinar attendees. So, to take us up on this offer, and it's a way that we're providing support to clubs through the COVID-19 impacts, simply contact us via our website and we'll get you all set up. And of course, you can always set up a trial Asset Track account on your own at assettrack.com.au, remembering that it's track total reporting and control. And secondly, given how valuable your volunteer time is, and especially with the return to play activities starting up that are going to take hopefully most of our time because it's all very exciting, and how asset management remains really important, we also offer a concierge onboarding service for Asset Track. And this has proven probably as popular as we thought. It is something that organisations are very happy to take us up on because it enables us to help set up your inspectors and your assets, saving more time. We have obviously a lot of experience in using Asset Track, given that we have a lot of experience in developing it from the outset. And so it can be much more efficient for us to do a lot of that onboarding for you as well. Again, simply contact us at cprgroup.com.au for any more information. So to reiterate what I said at the beginning of this evening's session, many of our clients have been surprised at how valuable it's been for them to seek our professional help and to spend a little bit of money in all areas of their governance. The ability for us to bring our more than 2 decades of experience really has helped clubs to grow by challenging the typical day-to-day thinking and helping them get out of the, well, we do it like that because that's how we've always done it mindset. The sign-up link for next week's webinar, which is all about using technology to organise and run great meetings with a demonstration of Meeting Track, our meeting management software, is already live at our website at cprgroup.com.au/webinars. Thank you very much for attending this evening, and thank you for the great questions and feedback, and we look forward to your company next time.